Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Nomad CEO. I'm here with Bill Heinrich, and he's a business coach, and he calls himself the Divine Purpose Guy. I'm really excited to have him on the show. As you know, guys, we're always looking for inspiring personalities that have had a transformational story and so Bill is a very interesting personality, and I wanted to share with you guys his personal story. What it was your transformational moment in your life on your way to become a business coach or entrepreneur? Please share your story.
Thank you, Roman. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Well, I've always owned my own businesses. I own my own business from the age of 25 and have owned my own businesses all my life. But it reached a point where I had no fulfillment in my life, and my life just got crazier and crazier. It was chaotic. And, ultimately I was miserable. And so a little over 30 years ago, I walked out the door to find out why I was miserable. I walked out the door and changed everything but my name. Um, and have been on that path of looking at and searching for uh, the reasons for my misery. And not only did I find out why I was miserable, but I also found all the solutions that allow someone to live in what I describe as extreme happiness. And I turned that into a coaching business, and I've been teaching executives and CEOs how to do this and how to live with their authentic self rather than living. Everybody has a tendency to live in survival outside of themselves, and that's what creates the misery.
I understand. You're basically tapping into this is happiness is such an elusive term, right? And so
Yeah.
you started as an entrepreneur. Everyone wants to be happy, but how does it all tie together? What has purpose to do with it? How did you even find out that just entrepreneurship isn't it? How did you and at what point did you notice that misery was creeping in? And how did you notice?
Well,
How
I
could you
noticed, yeah, in going back, I noticed it at birth is when I
Okay.
noticed it. I was born into a family of fear. I didn't realize it at the time, but my entire life, as when I was younger, life never made sense to me. I was in a very rigid Catholic family, and I ended up rebelling and kicking out because nothing made sense to me. As it turns out, I have this very innate wisdom about how the universe works, how life works. And it wasn't until I was very successful at a young age. I had money. I mean, when I was 26, I had a big credit line at the bank. I could just call the bank and tell them to put money in my account. I mean, these were things that you really can't. I don't even know if you can do it today. It doesn't matter to me anymore because my life has completely different meaning now. But I was just miserable, and my I was living completely outside of me. All of my whole life, everything in my life was based on everything outside of me. And it just led to more and more just insanity. It's just you can never find fulfillment that. So I went for on the search of again why I was miserable. Um and I found the things that make the difference. And so like I said, I walked away from my life 30 years ago. I started working with CEOs and executives business coaching 15 years ago, and have worked with and work with people that are having tremendous, tremendous success, much more so than they were previously. Because when you know who you are, life is different. You go through life with a completely different perspective when you're certain that you know who you are, not what you think you should be doing, not with your position, but in your gut, like for certain who you are.
It's a gut
Changes it.
feeling.
It's all feeling is the key word. It's all about feeling. One must
It's about
understand, you must
Yeah, because
understand how to feel. Yes.
and if someone is unsure whether they're living in their true selves, then it's probably not, right? You need to be sure.
Well, I have not met anybody yet that had any inkling that they were and that they even knew how. There's people that supposedly say they do, but the way they live their lives, it's very clear to me that it's not true. It's just, it's the figment of their imagination. And the reason
Yeah, because a
for
lot
it
of those,
is,
because you know
go,
what,
go ahead.
I'm yeah, sorry. So I'm just very interested in more of the actionable stuff people can use because we clearly have all the same drive and desires to be. I mean, it's this elusive term again of happiness and purpose and everything. And so when a lot of there's a reason why so many coaches exist, right? Because we are all sort of wandering around, no idea how to actually live by those same personal a lot of people don't even know what their values are, right? So you want to first of all you want to have those the clarity on what's actually important to you, and when you have when you have clarity about or clarity on the fundamental stuff that is actually important to you, then you can sort of figure it out, or go craft a
Well,
different.
what is the fundamental stuff?
Yeah, but it's different for everyone, right?
No, no, it isn't. See, that's where people are in error. That's why I'm asking you what you think the fundamental stuff
Well,
is.
what is eternal? I agree with you that there are in eternal truth, I mean integrity, honesty, stuff like that. Uh, we can live, we can lie to ourselves, or we can be real when we look
You
into the mirror.
No, here's you want to know the truth? We're incapable of being honest with ourselves.
Yeah, we're lying often to ourselves. Yes,
We are constitutionally incapable of being honest with ourselves. You can't do it.
it's the ego voice that's trying to. It's a battle
The,
of
see,
yeah,
well, the ego is only ever going to get you in trouble and bring suffering.
yeah.
Your physical life, okay? Your physical life, the life that you live, it can only be this: a lack of clarity, hard work, and suffering. That's the best you can get out of life. The only way you can change that is by understanding your inner game and who you are energetically. You must understand your energy, because your energy is who you are. Your energy is what runs your life. So when I work with clients, I tell them right up front, I'm not a performance coach. I could care less what somebody's results are. It doesn't matter to me. Once they know who they are, then they can make choices. Then you have clarity. Then you have real power, because you have the ability to go through life understanding what's best for you and what's best in any given situation. So even though I'm a business coach, I seldom talk business with my clients, because what we're really talking about is what's going on in their inner game and what's running their life. Because once they understand themselves, they always know what to do. They know what the right choice is when they know who they are. And that's a
Yes,
fact.
there's a fundamental. I mean, this is a pivotal thing, thing to know.
Well, let me explain how it works.
So let's be honest. Every coach has a sort of method of helping people. I mean, we can, and what you just mentioned is also very true. I think when talking to business coaches, often they are just, it's seldom the business side of things. It's always this: what's your philosophy of how do you contribute? How do you help other people, right? So, and then that turns
Yeah,
into
and see,
into
and
a.
yeah, there's only one thing that matters, is knowing who you are. That's all that matters.
Okay, but
So
what is your framework to get people to know who they are? What would be the 5 things that you actually do for your clients, that they know, okay, so I work with this guy and he's actually going to help me to find out who I'm truly are, and how I'm staying centered in my true self, and how do you get there? How do you take that from being this concept that nobody knows how to achieve it to actually getting results? Yeah.
right. The first thing, you have to get people to understand how life works. And and there's two of you. There's two of every one of us. There's the physical us. That's us in physical reality. And there's the energetic piece of us. And the energetic piece The energetic part is who you are, right? That's who you are. That's how you make your choices. That's what runs your life. And the day you die, the physical part of you that you see, it stays here. It's the energy that leaves. So your purpose and who you are is who you're being, not what you're doing. What you're doing doesn't matter. Who you're being is what makes all the difference in the world.
It's profound stuff, right? This is like Eckhart Tolle's science thing. You know Eckhart Tolle? I'm a big fan.
Mm-hmm.
It's the being side of things and
Mm-hmm.
having this, because you're doing is just a consequence of your being, right? It's just this down um
It's how you're showing up to anything, right?
being is doing, and then as a consequence of doing, we end up having
You see,
stuff.
you see some of the terms that you mentioned before, like integrity, and I don't remember what else you said,
Well,
but
honesty,
honesty and
truth,
integrity. Okay. Well, there's no such thing as truth. Okay. We'll just forget about
isn't.
truth. No.
Are you relativists?
No, but everything's made up. Everything's a perception of your past. You
Well, but
spoke about you spoke about Eckhart Tolle, okay? Here's what Eckhart says, okay? There's only one way you can create fear in your life. There's only one way to create fear. You have to go to the past. You cannot create fear in the present moment. It's not possible.
uh,
It's not possible. You have to go to the past or the future, but the future, truthfully, is just your past thrown out in front of you. That's all your
right.
future is, right? So the only way you can create fear is in the past. So when you look at integrity, for instance, integrity is a great word, but integrity is something that has to do with the physical and the type of response you're going to get.
It's a sort of an alignment of your the perceived persona and the one you're acting out.
So it doesn't count. Okay. If I talk about love, there's no perception of what that's going to be in the physical. Love is just love.
Yeah.
And and you can't end it.
And Tolle mentioned what you just said. He calls it also when you create not just fear, but you create time where is none, right? Where there is none. You can actually,
Yeah.
when you go back in time, you're basically pulling out time. You make time a new concept, and you bring up more time. You create time, useless time from the past that has
Which
a
is creating
emotional
suffering,
charge. Yeah,
which
it has
creates suffering. Yeah,
exactly, because that time comes with an emotional charge and a memory that is charged
exactly.
emotionally. And then you create
Exactly.
time where there's no need for time. We could just be now, in the now. And
There is
then,
no such thing as time, right?
yeah, it's just
This
an,
is all made up.
yeah, it's in
It's
your
all
made
made
up in
up
your
to
mind.
control.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. When you talk about time, we're in different time zones, right? Like, but there
Yes,
is no difference
it's
except
just
what they're
now.
it's just there's just now, except what they're telling us where we live.
Yeah,
But the truth of the matter is you only have now. And it's about, you see, it's about who you're being, because number one, there's only two emotions. Okay. Number one, there's two emotions and there's one truth. And that's it. There's only one thing in life that's true. And that's how you feel. How you feel is true. It's creating your energy. Your emotions are creating your vibration. You cannot have a feeling without a story. It's not possible.
yeah,
So it's what's happening is people are actually reliving their stories over and over and over again. And what I do is teach people how to write a new story. And everybody has different stories. Everybody's different. Everybody has different energy. No two people are the same. We're all unique. We're all very, very powerful. Very powerful. We're so powerful, it's incredible. But the minute you get caught up in the survival part of life, which is in the physical, run by your ego and your mind, you go to suffering. When you're thriving, what you're focused on is showing up from a place of service and love for the benefit of all involved, regardless of the outcome. And you always choose and do the right thing. You always choose and do the right thing. Energy runs everything. But what people are doing is they're reliving their stories over and over and over again. So I go in and dissect for people their stories and teach them how to write new ones, and their life changes like that. And the minute you start understanding all of the pieces of who you are, let me give you an example. There's 38 different life lesson paths that people have. There's 38 different life lesson paths with billions of different combinations. We're born with a life lesson. When we're born with a life lesson, it means we're born with a blind spot. We don't see life. We just see a small piece of life from our viewpoint, and that's it. And that's all. It's the same for everybody, but we all have different lessons. And those lessons get compounded based on our family of origin, the place where we're born, the geographic, the economic. There's so many different factors that come into it that determine the stories that people live out in their lives. And they live with these grandiose stories where they're always in a position of protecting their story. But with love, there's only two emotions. There's love and fear, and that's it. There's no other emotions. Everything comes from one of those two. When you come from love, there's nothing to protect. When you live in fear, you're in a constant state of protection. That's what creates suffering.
It's a state of it's the abundance against scarcity mindset, right? When
Scarcity,
scarcity,
survival, scarcity, surviving, abundance is thriving. See, you can't describe abundance, but you can describe scarcity.
yeah, yes, when you mentioned the two energy sources, or the
Two
fear and
emotions.
emotions. This other American author called David Hawkins
Yes. Yeah, where
talks
he's
about
David,
this on
power
his
versus force. Yeah.
yeah, this the levels of being most profound key takeaway that I've from that book, like the power versus force. What really astonished me, but what left me very impressed, is the fact that you can talk about the feelings or the emotions as if it's an equivalent, like a state of consciousness is equivalent to an emotion
That
state,
is your state
emotional.
of consciousness.
Yep.
Your energy, your energy is your state of consciousness.
It's such an interesting realization, because if you think about it, nobody does it in the public in the public conversation. It's never used like that. I mean, it's never
No,
used.
no.
It's never understood that if you spend a lot more time in one emotion, let's say you're an angry person and you spend a lot of time angry, then that prolonged state of emotional state of anger is then your basically your baseline or
It's your level of consciousness.
default
Yeah,
emotional home.
yeah.
I I interviewed another coach that just a week ago, called Louis Huckstep, pretty successful guy from Australia, has its own. So he's a famous figure, and he calls it the emotional home where you reside most of the time. And then this is also like a state of consciousness. Like, it's not just an emotion; it's actually a state of conscious. And then understanding that this is the same thing, just in a it was a game changer for me, because now I know that I have to be wary and I have to be cautious about where I spend my time emotionally in, right? Because this is how.
Your emotions run your life.
Yes. And
It's
so,
that simple.
but understanding that makes a difference, right? Because people think like
Of course. Of
people
course.
have this idea that they have no control over their emotions, which is only partially true.
Which is completely false.
Well, it's false if you understand that you can let go of them. You can initiate a process of letting go of emotions by not resisting them, but they do come without prior. They're not going to tell you when
But
it's.
here's the deal. I work with people with this all the time. Okay. And I take people, I have one person I worked with, a young fellow, okay? He said he learned more from me in 2 coaching sessions than he learned in 50 therapy sessions. And the reason, and this is what he said, but the reason for it is when you understand vibration, you'll understand your life. And when you look at things from a vibration, just like Hawkins talks about, he talks about each of those things resonate at different vibrations, and that determines the level of consciousness that you live at. But the level of consciousness you're living at is a vibration. And the vibration is something that allows you to connect with universal wisdom instead of just being locked into your intellect and what's happening in the physical, where you're only using your 5 senses. There's so much going on in the world. All of our power, our purpose, everything sits in the non-physical. It's in everything you can't see, touch, and feel. Just like your emotions are non-physical. You feel them, but they're just energy. And it's energy that causes you to behave a certain way. And when you understand the story that's creating it, and you understand, I create a blueprint for people and they just follow their own personal blueprint, which allows them to make new choices. You can make a new choice, change your energy just like that. And like you're talking about with anger, that's part of one of the universal laws, which is the law of correspondence. The law of correspondence for the universe says this: as above, so below. Whatever energy you're in body, mind, spirit, and emotions. It's all the same.
Yeah, interesting stuff. It's always boggled my mind the profound impact then that just the states of consciousness have on everything, right? It's all the same. It's where energy go. Tony Robbins has this say, where energy go, no, where focus goes, energy goes, or something like that. It's also this.
Where energy goes, you go. Where your attention goes, you
It
go.
goes energy. Yeah, yeah,
Where
yes.
your energy goes, you go. And that is so very true. And when you start understanding energy and you don't live with attention, but you learn to live with intention, intention is based on energy, attention is based on the physical and a goal and something that you're going after.
Yes, amazing. Okay, Bill. So now this is really. I love the topic here. How would you turn that into? Let's just assume we're talking to a 25-year-old young guy who's kind of, in a way, he wants to turn he's an entrepreneur, but he doesn't really know where to start. What would you give a practical advice for guys who are just a little bit, that lack the clarity we are talking about, but and the wisdom because they're too young,
Well, it
but they
doesn't,
want
the
to.
clarity that the people lacking the clarity are it's everybody. It's
Yes.
everybody. Everybody's living with a blindfold on and they're making decisions based on who they aren't.
Mm,
And that's a fact because they don't know who they are. They're living in protecting themselves. So it really just comes down to the person and what's going on in their life. That's right where I start. What's going on in your life? You see, people come to me and they say, "Oh, my business isn't good, my relationship isn't good." And I tell them, that's not why you're here. "Oh, yes, it is." I know it isn't. The reason you've come to me is because of how you feel about it, because you don't feel good. That's why you're
yeah.
here. But
Yes.
that's just out in the physical. And we go from there. So we see what isn't feeling good in their life and we look at what's creating that. And then I'm able to show them very specific things. There's there's many different pieces that I've discovered that I can show anybody that makes up the parts of their life that allows them to put the puzzle pieces together. And when they put the puzzle pieces together and they know who they are, it happens instantly. Their life changes instantly because they can see and feel.
Yeah. Yes. And then it's just what you said before. Business coaching isn't it's just more like a therapy thing. It's like it's like a,
It's all
to,
it's about the inner game. It's it's about the
yeah.
inner game. You're
It's
what's
all
going on.
and it's all connected, because then at the end turns out that the story you tell yourself is also often a very interesting component, or story that you can tell to your potential customer, right? Because you're a person, and then you have a past and the future, and you have dreams, and you have your unique way of doing things and approaching problems. And that all becomes is a story, of course, essentially. And then that same story, I mean, whether you're happy with it or not, will produce outcomes. But also, if you're an entrepreneur, you want to just keep the story evolving, and make it a story that's also interesting, right? So you can then tell the
But that
story.
never brings fulfillment.
Well, it
It'll
depends,
never,
because what I found out
no,
is that
it will never bring fulfillment when you're just wrapped up in a story that you're feeding to people because
no, no, no.
everything in the universe is always changing.
Wait a second, but that's not what I said. I said the story that you tell yourself, if that's the authentic one, then,
It isn't.
then
Right.
well, it depends on what. I mean, we're telling ourselves a story about our lives, which is the story we make up, but can be aligned with who we are. And if
No, it
we
is. It is who you are.
well, yes, but you can tell yourself a story that it's not rooted in your inner. You can tell a bad story, right? It's also, you can make up a story about yourself which is not very, let's call it,
Well, people have a
advantageous.
tendency to want to protect themselves, Roman,
Yeah,
when
yeah,
they
the
make up these
ego
stories.
story. That's not
However,
that's Yeah,
that's the intellect. Your feelings are the truth, and your story will not be in alignment with your feelings. That's why
yeah. So
people aren't happy.
so my point was that the story that's constantly evolving about yourself, because you're updating your story, right? We update our stories constantly, that we tell ourselves in the morning, or even unconsciously. That same story, if it is an alignment to the purpose you have out there in the world, that you think that's your purpose, and it's in alignment with everything you stand for, that's a good thing. I mean, can be a very powerful thing, right? You can actually craft a story that's not just helpful for yourself, but also to others, right? Or don't you think that's
Well,
true?
so that's not true.
Not true.
And, and
Why
here's
not?
why. Because I don't have a story to tell. I just
Don't
get
you
to
think
be
we all
me.
have?
I think I used to, but that was when I was living outside myself and living from the story. I'm living today energetically from who I am. And
Isn't that
that's it.
itself also a story?
No, it's a matter of being. It's a choice. It's a conscious evolved choice that deals with the energy that I'm coming from. I don't let the stories inside me control me anymore. I don't
Okay.
let them control me. I had very low self-esteem when I was younger. I still have low self-esteem. That story no longer controls me. I get
Okay.
to be me and speak what is true for who I'm being and how I feel and what I know truth is. And in life, there's only one truth in life, and that's how you feel. And that's it. Everything else is a story, and all the stories are made up. It's all
Yeah.
about how you're feeling, period.
Yeah. I guess that's something I can agree on. Yeah, interesting, Bill. So what was your advice for that guy, the 25-year-old who's not sure what to do next, what to focus on? What's your practical advice for that guy?
Well, the simplest thing, the number one advice if I'm just going to blurt out advice to people in general, okay, I always tell them find out where you're being defensive.
Okay.
Because if you're being defensive, you're protecting a story, and that story is running your life. I'm
Yes.
not defensive. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to agree with things that every people say, but I'm not here to defend anything. I'm just here to tell you what I know to be true. You can have your own opinion. You're unique. You get to be you. I have no problem with that. But when we're defensive, the only way that you can be defensive is because you're with ego and fear in the physical, and you're protecting a story inside you.
And how do you find your true north? How do you find your? Oh, I'm sorry about. So
It's on the other side of everything you're being defensive about.
okay, so just find out where you're defensive about, and then go the other way.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not bad. I mean, it's something we can pass on as a as it's a good takeaway,
Yeah.
I guess.
understand understand there's only two emotions. Everybody complicates things when you're telling stories, Roman. You and everyone else telling stories make things very complicated, and people are explaining their uniqueness with their story, and everybody's, what the hell is going on here, and everybody, but I know this, and everybody's defending, oh, who's right, who's wrong. That's what stories do. There's only two emotions, love and fear. Now listen to this, love and fear. Okay. They cannot coexist.
No, they cannot. We know
They
this.
can't coexist. The other thing is fear cannot come to the present moment. It's impossible to bring fear to the present moment. You must go to the past. This is Eckhart Tolle's teachings. You have
Yeah,
to go to the past or future to create fear. Love can be in the present moment. Fear is about protection. Love is about giving and sharing and being, nothing to defend. With love, the more you give, the more you get. And the truth of the matter is, you ask anybody in the world, anybody, anywhere in the world, one or two of their most special moments, okay? They don't go to a story. They go right to how they felt. They go right to the feeling. That's how they identify it. People will
yeah.
never remember what you said, but they're always going to remember how you made them feel. Hello.
Very,
I mean, there it is, how they feel. So it's not the intellect.
no, it's not. No, it's never been. It's only it's how we feel. It's how this is how we buy stuff, how we consume, how we interact.
Advertising is after your emotions totally. They're
Yes,
brilliant at
absolutely.
tapping into your emotions. Yes.
Yes, yes. Wonderful, Bill. Thank you so much for the insight here. I can tell you have a lot of many hours of experience talking to people because you can tell by the simplicity that you bring forward when talking about these issues,
I've been researching this for over 30 years.
which is something that because simplicity is such an undervalued concept in this modern world, I think, because we can
Well,
simplify. Yes.
simplicity defines authenticity. Stories
Yeah.
and complexity defines fear and
Yeah. Simplicity
protection.
is bringing simplicity in our lives is also is an underrated productivity hack. Let's call
Yeah.
it like that. Yes.
Yeah. But the reason people aren't in simplicity is because they don't have clarity. And the clarity they don't have is who they are. What they're after is their survival, and they're out in some sort of fog looking for clarity.
Fog of war. Yeah. Okay. All right. Bill, how can people reach out to you?
It's really easy. My website is True Life Purpose Now, True Life Purpose Now. But if somebody wanted to speak to me, they can just go to speaktobill.com, and then get on my
Amazing.
calendar. Simple.
Amazing. I'm also gonna add your website to the newsletter article, and so people can sign up at the end. And yeah, I mean, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, Bill. It was amazing a conversation. I've learned a big deal about about the human condition. It's what it is. Right?
It's
Thank you.
it's the human. It's the you learn more about the human illusion.
Which
That's what
happens
it
to be the
is.
human
It's all an
condition.
illusion. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much, Bill. It was great
Roman,
talking to
thank you.
you.
I loved our conversation. I loved your questions, and we covered a lot of ground in a short period of time.
We did. We did. All the best to you, Bill. Bye bye.
Thank you very much.